We Are Live. And actually, I've just seen the aura ring on your finger. So you got it.
I got it. Yeah.
How are you finding it? How long have you had it now?
I did what 4 weeks now,
Yeah.
and it's better at tracking sleep and resilience and readiness and
Yeah.
energy. They put out a new feature just in time for me to get the flu. Your body temperature's up. You might have some major symptoms. Do you want to take a rest day? But what it's not good at is I tried tracking like heart rate during strength training. Like I looked it up and it was, you spent the past 30 minutes in zone one. Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the thing about them. They are almost exclusively a wellness tracker. So as you said, for the things, and a lot of people love wearing a ring rather than the Whoop, which I've got here, and they look great, and they're really good at that stuff. But they're not a tool for working out. I'm sure you can wear them if you're swimming or if you're running. It might get a little bit slippy, but it's more for the other stuff. But like, it's all data, right? If you can just take it, as long as you're looking at it and you're paying attention to it, that's where a lot of people go wrong. Understandably, is we get shiny object syndrome, and we've got this cool thing, and it sits there for kind of a week, and 2 weeks in, we're looking at the data, then after a month, we've almost paying no attention to it, and that's where they lose their value. So they're all, even a standard Fitbit will do its job if you're looking at the data, depending on how complex you want to be. But I'm glad you got it. Keep me updated. We've actually got in the system now, which is a new feature, is an integration with Aura. But the only reason I lean into other solutions is just because of that kind of the workout piece and how it combines that data.
It tracks walking, it tracks heart
Yeah.
rate, it tracks blood oxygen, temperature, it tracks a lot of things that my Apple Watch doesn't track. Of course, Apple Watch deals, are you walking, right? That kind of thing. So apparently, it doesn't do well at tracking heart rate when you're doing a lot of movement.
Yeah.
Which is when you're lifting weights, you're doing a lot of movement, which is why you get the end results.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a good combination because it was either upgrade the Apple Watch or go for something else that gives you a little bit more holistic view of your overall health and
Exactly that.
well-being. So
Yeah, exactly that. No, it's a brilliant tool on for you to utilize on your continued journey, which we'll of course get into. But probably worth us just again contextualizing this conversation a little bit more and your journey, Jonathan. If you're happy, just introduce yourself, what you do, who you are. No pressure on that, of course. Just a light introduction if you want it to be, and then we can get into the details of your transformation. Because in terms of overall health, physique, body composition, it's been great. The mindset shift as well, and doing that alongside being father, husband, and CEO, taking on that role during the kind of process or at the very beginning, a lot of complexities to onboard. So it's been a brilliant journey to be a part of. But just softly introduce yourself, and then we can get into it.
yeah, so if anybody's picking up on the accent, I'm a 24-year British expat living in New York, Westchester, just north of the city, but I have lived in New York City. I've been this side of the pond 22 years, 15 years in New York. And basically, from a professional sense, I'm in financial services. From a personal sense, I'm a father of 5 boys, 20 down to 10. The house is trashed, and a very understanding wife. Um, and, progressively moving on my career, um, points during that journey of sort of prioritizing some health and not really knowing what I was doing, bit of Peloton, bit of, going to the gym, getting a trainer. So we enter into 2024, probably at a low point from a health perspective. Numbers, blood work, not particularly good, showing some signs of high cholesterol, certainly feeling overweight, being overweight, but, mentally sharp, and certainly life's not getting any easier. And as you well know, March of this year, I transitioned to become CEO of the company I work for, Portfolio BI, which was going to be a pretty significant ask in terms of commitment, in terms of time. And it would have been really easy at that point to just say, you know what, I'll deal with this health thing and overweight and all of those things at a later date, just really buckle down. But to me, and the conversation you and I were having was, it's never going to get less busy, right? It's never going to get easier. So I've got to learn to incorporate health back into my lifestyle, knowing that certainly in the first weeks, Jamie, kicking and screaming, like there's no way I can do that. That's not gonna, so, but really just going through a journey where starting to think about health more often, thinking about what I'm consuming, looking at those metrics, looking at the numbers, looking at the schedule, and making sure that there's always 30 minutes carved out to do a workout session. And it's all about planning, right? If you prioritize it, if you just leave it up to the chance, right, then you'll never get it done. I think I said to you when we first met was, if I don't work out in the morning, I never work out.
Yeah.
Whereas most of my workouts, I take an hour in the evening. Not ideal, right? But they get done. And I say not ideal because after the workout, I want to go get my 8 hours of sleep, and I can't sleep because I'm all jacked up. So, but yeah, that's just basically it. I wanted to invest in this, right? The one and only body I have, right? To benefit this, but to make sure that, as I'm working and, looking for some very good positive outcomes from a professional perspective, that I was still around to enjoy it with the family, right? Because they're making pretty big sacrifices from time commitment on my side and seeing me. So that was generally the sense of like, this has got to get done.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if you haven't already realized, Jonathan was a client, and we'll go through his journey. Is no longer a client and is absolutely smashing it, which again we'll contextualize as we continue this conversation. You obviously had to get to a point, Jonathan, in which, and obviously we actually sat down and went through this, but before then, when we first engaged, where you were weighing up, I need to do something. What does that something look like? How do I get on top of this? Where were you? Just give people an idea of where you were mentally and processing those thoughts before you committed and then when you committed. Because I'm under no illusions as someone who is technically, coach and sits above and commands, which is a horrible word. It's extremely difficult to commit because a lot of us, whether we have self-limiting beliefs or a lack of confidence that we can see it through, not that the solution's the right thing, but that we can see it through, whether it's a lack of confidence in the solution itself, whether it's, like you said, it's kind of bury the head in the sand because we don't want to onboard too much. There's Our mind will find a million and one reasons not to do something if we know there's some resistance coming up. But you jumped in 2 feet, and like we said, we've had our obstacles, but you jumped in 2 feet, and you've reaped the reward. So, where were you at mentally in that space when you committed, and what did it take to get there?
I wouldn't say I was unhealthy,
Hmm.
right? Um, I would say that I knew that I was at a lull in activity, right? I could still go outside and still lift logs and do that, but just the general sense of fatigue, right? I'm 55 years old, like not getting any younger, and all the bits of the body start to start to demonstrate you're 55 years old. It was just like this, well, I'm not unfit and it'd be easy to punt this down the road, but why? What's the point, right? I want to live today, not 10 years from now when I get another job that's equally busy, right? It's so easy to say no. And I spent most of my life in a commercial aspect. It's very easy for people to say no. It's the most convenient answer, right? No, don't want to commit because this is a hard decision. This is hard for me to get my head wrapped around. But there was a couple of things that really catalyzed this. One is that I'm here on my health and I'm going to get busy and I need to incorporate. I want to be a fit, athletic CEO, not a fat, round, suits fitting badly kind of CEO. And but the other thing was I've been down this road before where I've been to the gym and I've had a trainer, right? But that was just for 45 minutes or whatever it was that you were just walking around the gym and being told to do stuff. Like, I love it. Tell me to do it and I'll do it. But the overall holistic view of health, right? I've been through juice cleanses. I'm now completely gluten free, and I've known that I should be gluten free, and I've been on and off. I've done keto stuff, right? But it's all seems to be quite temporary, and only just one slice of the whole picture. And from our conversation was, no, I want the big picture. I want the holistic. How do I live in this busy lifestyle where you're always too busy for everything, that you can then incorporate, right, good health, good eating, right, lots of eating out, lots of entertaining, in how you understand what you put in your body, and then the time you carve out to work out, and what you put in your body, and how it makes you want to work out or not want to work out,
Yeah.
right? All of those things. So I was looking for the big picture, the mindset of how do I approach each and every day when I, with having health as being a top priority, but not an overwhelming um, burden that would then get in the way of what I do for a living and
Yeah.
my family, obviously.
Yeah, of
That
course,
makes
of
sense.
course. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Especially makes sense for me having been through the journey with you. But I think it's important for people to understand that because it's so easy to go to the low hanging fruit in terms of either what's in front of us, what we've done before, or what costs the least. And that's cost the least in terms of, financially great, but also seemingly time commitment because
Yeah.
again, you're super busy. So it's just a reframing of the mindset around health to understand that actually if you want serious change and you want that change to stay as it has done for you now and will continue to do so, I'm sure, you have to butt up against the resistance early. And that's of course mental resistance and committing, whether that's financially or time or yeah, but actually it's doing the hard stuff. And when you break it down, you can't cheat the system. The system needs to be bespoke to you. The programming needs to be unique. It needs to move around your schedule, all of that stuff. But actually, you can't cheat it. If you do the do and you tick the boxes, it'll work. But yes, in that early part, it's new systems, new habits, complete new focus or alignment to nutrition and what does nutrition mean to you and how's it serving and how you're meant to manage that. It's a lot to onboard early on, isn't it? So how did you deal with that in the initial part of this? So say first 2-3 weeks when you're trying to get to grips with like what is Jamie telling me to do here? What's this app all about? What are the kind of elements of this? How did you manage to kind of piece it all together? Because it wasn't jump in and 2 feet immediate success. It took a little bit of time.
Definitely, right? Because you got your morning check-ins, right? You got, oh, I'm going to weigh myself every morning. I never weighed myself every morning. It's probably because I didn't like the results, right? But starting to look at your stats, heart rate variance, right? How am I handling stress? To then, I think the biggest like gripe I had in the first week, there's no way I can follow a meal plan. And that's right. I can't follow a meal. I don't have time to prepare everything. I don't have time. But that was tracking macros, right? Was probably the biggest revelation in anything that I do, right? So go out and have a nice steak dinner. You got like a nice piece of steak, you got your vegetables, right? And broccoli and sprouts and whatever it is, right? Well, first of all, lots of sugars and oils those meals are cooked in, and then you start typing in the numbers and you realize, God, it's mostly fat, not protein, right? You think you're getting a lot of protein. And that was when you're tracking everything. I think the biggest hurdle from the macros perspective was how do I get the right amount of protein in a world where I am progressing into calorie deficit and I'm not consuming tons of carbs and fat. And so that was a solution I had to come up with myself, right? That wasn't like you are handing me, right, this is the easy way to do it, right? All
Yeah.
of those things. This was something I had to figure out. Like, how do I go to work, right? And I'm meeting, and then I've got 20 minutes before I've got the next thing, and it's midday and I need to eat, right? How do I can go out in New York, there's street vans everywhere, right? But none of it's great for achieving your macros. So how do you do that? And looking at, incorporating meal replacement shakes and stuff like that. It is real food, but it's not real food, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But you can't sit there and judge. You just got to put the nutrition in your body. So I think that was the biggest hurdle for me, was getting my head wrapped around how do I exist every day and consume 3 squares a day plus a snack and stay within the boundaries of those macros. Because as we well know, right, you're in calorie deficit and you're burning more calories, and then obviously the weight comes down. And then the secondary bit was, okay, so you go up to the machine, you start working out, and I have a tonal on the wall, right? So it's super convenient for me in the bedroom. I don't have to jump in the car on a cold morning, go to the gym. And great device. But as you and I went through the first 4 or 5 weeks of that journey is like, how do you actually use it so it's going to have impact, right? Jamie wants me to do 10 reps. Oh, great. I'm doing 10 reps. That's brilliant. Right. Next. Um, and what state of mind do you get to, and what state of body do you get to have impact on the journey? And that was the second struggle, right? And you said it, right? How do you work out to failure is kind of a bad way of stating it, but how
Yeah.
do you get to the point of exhaustion where you just can't do the next rep? And that's a good place to be. So that was, just carving out the time to do it was a lot easier than getting that mindset around health, macros, nutrition, and then getting to that point of what's a really good workout. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And just go back to the nutrition point very, very quickly. Nutrition is the one thing that almost dictates the success of your journey. Like the working out, it's there to facilitate many things. Of course, we want it to increase the amount you expend. Therefore, it makes the deficit process a little bit easier. You can get away with eating a little bit more, which is another topic which I'll get into shortly in terms of how much people should be eating. The sleep, which for my client base, maybe experiences, is an issue. And it's a real fine balance because anyone can sit here and, I talk about the holy trinity of quality, quantity, consistency, and I try and hammer it home and we build morning protocols and evening protocols to try and get that circadian rhythm. But ultimately, if you're traveling or your schedule changes and evolves, there's only so much you can do. Nutrition, however, will dictate how you feel, how you perform, your body composition, your mood, all of those things, but it's the hardest to grasp and to do sustainably. And a lot of people hear calorie counting and just go, "Oh, never, I couldn't do that." Those people that
Right.
calorie count are going to,
Yeah.
but actually, what calorie counting is just a process of education. It's a mental realignment of shit. Actually, there's more calories in that I thought. Maybe I need to take that out or at least alter my serving size. Maybe that food isn't the best to eat at that time of day. Maybe I'll eat that post workout. Okay, well, I'm going to, like you said, I'm going to be back to back meetings from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. Well, what am I going to do around my nutrition? Then maybe I can break for a quick lunch. Do I have something prepped? Do I have some, am I being taken out for dinner or am I taking a client out for dinner?
Right.
It's a whole ecosystem that you've got to try and balance. But you fix that with simply one thing, and that's intention. If you are intentionally thinking about it, like you wouldn't go in your work day and just sit down at your desk. I'm sure we all have days like this, some days, and then go, just twiddle your thumbs. What am I doing this week? We have
Right.
intention, right? Hopefully, I would hope, particularly for yourself and the people that I work with and myself, you have intention. We know what we've got to get action. We've got teams to hold accountable. We've got to do all this stuff, leadership work. But with our nutrition, we're just like, I'll fast in the morning because I'm not, it's easy for me to do so. And then before you know it, I've had 5 coffees and that blunts my metabolism. And then you get to the evening, you've had maybe one meal if you're lucky, if nothing, and then you're backloading on calories, cortisol levels get high, your ghrelin, your hunger hormone spikes, and you start almost ravaging, and your portion sizes become too big, and then you can get into that false sense of security of, well, I don't eat that much, and I skip lunch and breakfast, but actually your calories are backloaded. They're not of the right nutritional value. So it's just finding that balance. The amount of people, Jonathan, I probably said this to you, that I work with who actually their goal initially, at least one of their goals, is to reduce body fat, improve body
Mm,
composition.
yeah.
But to do that first, we need to increase what they eat a little bit because they are so severely under eating. Their metabolic rate is just too low. Like you couldn't get it down. It's a real fine balance, and it is hard. There is no quick fix to it. The only way you fix it is with nutrition. And like you said, you grasp that. Like we said, it took a little bit of time. But you grasp that in terms of, okay, I can give you the tools and show you the way and hold you accountable and all of that stuff. But ultimately, you are living your day to day.
Right.
You're feeling your
Yeah.
emotion and your stress and your cortisol. You know how things flex and move to the millisecond within your day. So only you can truly grab that and start to kind of analyze it. And obviously, you've got to a place and refine the system in which you've done that extremely, extremely well. So you're absolutely right. The nutritional journey is an interesting one. The workout is all about circumstance. What have you got access to? What goal are you looking to achieve? Realistically, what time can you work to? Any injuries, any limitations? Obviously, we went through surgery during this process, which we'll
Right.
get into. What would you say alongside the surgery, what would you say for you has been the most mentally eye-opening, or awakening is a terrible term, but eye-opening or transformational thing that you've learned or experienced, or maybe you didn't perceive before but actually had a dramatic impact? What's that one thing, would you say, if it is one thing, or maybe it's more?
I think mentally was to push, right? Push to a
Mm.
point that is beyond comfort.
Yeah.
Um, you can comfortably work out, right? I can get on my bike and just cycle, and it's fine, right? But you want to push yourself to actually where you're getting high degrees of impact. And in fact, when we went through that mindset shift and we start seeing that build, you can start seeing the progress accelerate. Um, that was the mental hurdle. Um, but I think just generally the eye-opening part of the experience, right? When you and I met, I went, "Well, it's all down here. I wouldn't mind it being up here, right?" But when that happened, right, and all this went away and it started appearing up here, was it stopped being a journey about weight loss? Because I think that's the easy metric for us to go by. Oh,
Yeah.
look at pounds are dropping off, right? I remember going starting at 209 and then breaking that 200 barrier and going, oh my god, what if next week I break the 190 barrier and now I'm down in the low 170s? But that's just one metric now of the how am I doing, and that metric is like, we just went through Christmas and got to say Boxing Day dinner. I just went, like I'm just gonna have what I want, but it's not about the weight anymore. It's about feeling strong,
Yeah.
right? Feeling strong and stable in not just having some muscles up here, but just generally the core and the being able to keep up. This is a strange way to equate it, right? So you go for a round of golf during the summer. By hole 13, right, you're exhausted and you've got 5 more holes to do. And oh my God, it's just terrible. Mentally, I'm struggling, right? I can do it for a round of golf now and I feel great throughout the whole thing, right? I'm not struggling for energy. It seems that the energy is like more balanced, but just the general sense of feeling strong, right? This isn't a muscle building, like I want to be, right, the next Ironman type thing, but just the general sense of feeling strong is that reward at the end of it, or the reward during when you transition from weight to everything like that. And that was I say it was pleasantly surprising because I've
Mm.
become the person I never thought I'd ever get to be.
That is an incredible sentence. Really, really good to hear, because we've developed a great relationship. It's been a brilliant journey. You're no longer working, well, technically inside the Consistency Club. We're still connected, which is brilliant and important to me. But those things are the things that matter, because it's hard, right? What you're doing at the start is, particularly what I'm asking you to do, is to try and visualize the process. But it's difficult to do that when you have no concept of where you can actually get to. It's easy to get stuck in I'm not the person I used to be. I'm getting older, but actually, if you throw away those self-limiting beliefs and you commit and you embrace a new system, a new strategy, a new way of living, literally the sky's the limit. And going back to the workout point, learning what true working out is. And on that note, and you touched on PT before, I'd like to emphasize this point: learning how to put yourself, and of course I gave you what to do and I gave you the rep ranges and we reviewed the data and how do you cut all of that stuff, but you put yourself through those workouts. So you can look at yourself at the end of the day, at the end of the process, whenever it be and go, shit, I did that.
Mm.
And that's a skill. If you can learn to put yourself through a good workouts, like your tonal workouts now, they still have the same intensity as when you last the process.
Yes.
There you go. Like
Yeah.
you've learned how to hold yourself accountable to put a 10 out of 10 shift in when that 10 out of 10 is available to you. And again, no day, no week, no month often is at 100% the entire time, is it? There's always going to be days where you feel a bit off, or you came back from travel, you had less sleep. This showing up, being committed, giving 100% based on what you've got that day, and you've learned to do that now. That'll serve you for the rest of your life. You don't need a PT to come in and say 2 more reps, Jonathan. you know good form, you know intensity, and that'll serve you, which is brilliant. Your physique's testament to that.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say if there was one thing that you've changed since finishing the program? Would it be more because conceptually it's an intense process, right? We're trying to optimize almost your human performance. Therefore, we need a certain degree of intensity. Would you say it's become a little bit more balanced and dynamic since leaving? What would you say is the one thing that's changed the most, other than
What's
me not
changed
nagging
the
you daily?
most? Well, it's strange, right? It's a 6 month journey, right? Of having you, right, the group being present, um, to help with whatever hurdles, and we went through a few hurdles, and we could talk about those, and then and then we had our sign off meeting, right? And then it's people go, well, you're on your own then, right? Well, you're not really on your own. I still text you, I still send you
Yeah.
stuff, but I think in that post program process, is starting to realize that there's room for forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Self forgiveness. So you're not. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me, right? And when I talk to people about this, well, what was it like? I got to lose some weight, right? Da 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 da. And I said, well, Jamie was the good guy standing on my shoulder, just whispering me, just go and get it done, right? Now apparently you're not there, but you are, right? That voice still resonates, but that forgiveness of understanding now you're responsible for your own balance of rest and workout and nutrition. And so not everything is ideal. We went through some
Yeah.
interesting sort of cycles during the journey, like international travel being one, getting jet lagged, and like I've done so much international travel, yet in this past year, like jet lag has hit me hard, and so struggling to get out of bed and get to the gym, struggling to carve out the time, struggling with sleep and rest and stuff like that. So just a more understanding sort of approach to own self forgiveness, right? Being sick just before Christmas, having the flu, and then it just turned into something else really nasty, like be going, I'm going to take 5 days off here, right?
Yeah.
That's not a 5 days and then maybe I'll get back to it. 5 days and then I'll start tracking back in to get
Yeah.
that cadence back. So I think that was when you're not on your own, but when you're sort of flying solo, is giving yourself a little bit of self forgiveness to, right. You can't perform 100% every day. I think you and I sat down. I said one of the nice things, like tracking you on social media, was you had this, like, there's a straight line graph, and then there's the bouncy journey that gets you progress. That's that's true. That's true in business. That's true in family life. That's true in health. Right? You just don't go linear.
Yeah.
Um, and for a metrics based person and sitting there looking at numbers all day, you expect linear. But that's sort of where I'm coming from in that. I don't know whether what I explain makes sense, but it's
Yeah.
just, I mean, the
No, it
room.
does. It does. You can't stay at 7, 8, 9,000 RPM. It can't be linear. The wheels would fall off. But the only way you get to a place in which you can, and I would have said this to you many times, having that honest conversation at the end of the day in the mirror, whether it's in a hotel room, on a in a plain bathroom or whatever, and going, did I give 100%? Did I analyze that with complete truth and go, I couldn't have done it today?
Yeah,
We have a subconscious voice, and you can't lie to that. Like, it knows whether we could have done more. And any time that you don't do it, if you could have, or you don't seek opportunities, going back to the word intention, which I hold close to everything I do each day, you can't kid that voice. And it starts to eat away at your confidence. And so you only get to a place where you can go, I need to leave this for 5 days now, because it's really not going to serve me if I push.
yeah,
Whether it's mentally drained, I'm physically ill, whatever it may be, right? You only get to that place to be able to make that decision, targeted time off from self confidence in yourself. And you have to go through kind of the journey of building that within you to get there. Because otherwise, as you said, you're in a position where 5 days becomes 2 weeks, and by that point, 6 months down the line, you're clambering to go, Christ, where did that half the year go? So it's good to hear that, because it's an important part. If you truly want to sustain it, we were in an intense, relatively intense. We'll go through the some of the hurdles and the surgery shortly, but intense six months. Even there's elements to that to get you to where we got to, and we'll relive the metrics at the end of this of where you were when you started and where you are now. You kind of, it has to be intense. It needs to build around your lifestyle, but it has to be intense. But to get to this point now where you can make the conscious decision to go, no, I need to pull back now because I know in 2 weeks or a month's time it means I can sustain this. That is how you truly, when we talk about longevity and these more exponential goals, that's how you unlock those. But let's go into some of the obstacles that we face and the things that we had to overcome. The obvious one is the surgery. So just give a little bit of context around that. And I know thinking back now, there was a little bit of worry in terms of the post surgery phase, which is good context again. So yeah, just share. I mean, did you knew you going into this when you started? I can't remember.
No,
No.
no. So basically, the weight loss, right? So all the
Yes.
stuff in
Yeah.
the middle, you learn that it's the layers of fat that keep a hernia in and not the muscle. And so what it revealed was a pretty significant groinal hernia. And I just remember back in June, right? I was on the treadmill doing my 5K, which I curse every minute of. But so I'm doing the 5K and I get off the treadmill and I'm like, what is that, right? And I'd always had a sensation down there, but this started to reveal itself, and it was pretty significant hernia. So when I get it checked out, right, went to see a surgeon, got it scheduled for August, and both sides. And that was frustrating to me because I'm like, I've just got to this point where we're making really good progress. And he just told me I can't work out for 2 weeks, right? And he was nothing. No Pilates, no yoga, no stretching, no cycling, no squats, no weightlifting. I'm like, what am I going to do for 2 weeks? So, and obviously the surgery was a little bit more painful than I expected on a Monday, and I was ready to go back to work in the city on the Thursday. And my wife said to me Wednesday night, "You think that's the best idea?" Like, no. But that was my first major surgery, so I had no perception of what was the aftermath was going to be. So there was a lot of anxiety of right, am I going to be able to get back in? I'm in this 6 month program. Am I going to be able to get to the point where I graduate? Now, it's kind of silly, right? Because we could always extend it, right? There was no issue there, but it was this pretty significant bump where I hobbled around for a couple of days and then started to feel the recovery kick in, like the soreness, the inflammation, what it did to the metrics. But if you then backtrack 4 weeks before that surgery, one of the things was going to the doctor and then having blood work and all the things that they do to prep for surgery, blood pressure and stuff like that. Every time I could see it, I would track it, right, in my health app, and my numbers were spot on, right? So what it was showing to me that I was a fit and healthy human being, ready to go in for surgery. So I was obviously at a maximum point where I'll be able to tolerate the surgery and recover relatively quickly. Cholesterol was completely normal, right? All my metrics were completely normal. And that was the thing that triggered me to go, right, you're on the right path. This is a temporary barrier.
Yeah.
You'll then get back to it. And I remember the surgeon said 2 weeks, no activity. And then I went to see him. I probably scheduled my checkup, post-surgery checkup a little early because I wanted to make sure that 2 weeks I could get back to it. And he saw me and he said, like, you've got almost no inflammation right around the surgical site. There's lots of information, but right, what they're really worried about is around the surgical site. And he said, "Oh yeah, you can get back to it." And I went, "No, you told me 2 weeks. I'm going to wait. It's solid 2 weeks." But there was a lot of anxiety of unraveling what had just been fixed. So when we went back to it, and you adjusted the workouts to be less intense from a weight perspective, but more reps and stuff like that, I really appreciate that because you can see. I mean, you can see from my stats, right? It was like progress, and then boom. And it took a long time, relatively long time, to get back to being on track. But I would say that was a blessing, right? Because it goes back to the last conversation we had with forgiveness and knowing when to take rest and time out, is that 2 weeks off isn't going to unravel everything you've done to progress.
Yep.
What it does potentially unravel is your ability to hop back on the horse and move forward again. And so having gone through that, it's the mental, I know I've got to get back on the horse type thing. So when I was sick, right, and tried working out, knew I was going to took a 5-day break and then get back on the wagon, that experience was good preparation. I'm always a glass half full kind of guy, right? So
Yeah.
that was good preparation, but that was an interesting blip. But in hindsight, I don't know how I would have recovered from that surgery had I not been the fit and healthy human being.
Yeah.
Going for my blood work and they go, oh, you got high cholesterol, maybe we give you pharmaceuticals for that, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Good. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I always say, and I probably said this to you when we sat down in Hereford and had that initial coffee. The more obstacles we go through to, and I don't think it lands most of the time when I say it to people really at the start of the journey, but the more obstacles we can go through together, the better. And I know, because I would be the same when you're investing mental bandwidth, financially, everything, this commitment to go, well, I want to extract the most I can out of this. And the most in our mind is physically look the best, the most energy, my health metrics being great, which of course is human nature. But actually, if you realign that mindset, the most is how many obstacles can I face within this process
Right.
that I can be coached to overcome. Because most people can, sustain some sort of consistency and discipline when life's pretty easy. They wake up, they go to bed similar sort of times. Their schedule isn't too variable. They're not overcoming any obstacles, whether it's at work or in their life or their health or anything. We can find a bit of a rhythm. It's when those walls get torn down. It's a potent time of year at the moment, right? Over this holiday period, I keep saying, one hot day doesn't make a summer. Your battle with your health is not won and lost over a 2-week period over Christmas.
Yeah.
It's not worth the pent up energy of stressing, like, oh my God, I don't want to binge drink. Oh my God, what am I eating? Oh my God, I need to cram in a workout. You're sucking the enjoyment out of something that should be really enjoyable. It's a blip and then you're back to it and on the horse, but it's easier said than done. So the fact that we could go through that journey and give some context to, okay, this is how we prepped for it, got you in an unbelievable or much better position where you recovered really well. We realigned the plan slightly and the accountability was there to kind of get back to it. And that's the value. And that, of course, double hernia surgery is quite dramatic, but that's just for any obstacle. If it was going away for 2 weeks with a family, whatever it may be, it's the same mindset really. It's just partition that time, don't cry over spilt milk, take the lessons from it and move forward. Now, the fact that we've been through this journey together, if anything cropped like that again, you know what to do in terms of your workouts, in terms of nutrition, the bounce back process, the intensities to start with and build from. You've got that skill, and a huge part of this is just passing on the knowledge. Like, how does your body respond to the stimuli? What do you need? How hard can you push, and what do you need to recover from that? So it's yeah. I'm glad we went through that. You bounced back
Well, you're
incredibly.
glad we went through that. Good.
Yeah. No, yeah, yeah. Not that I was on the surgery table.
But no, it's fixed, right?
Yeah,
It's now fixed. I move on,
yeah,
right? And I don't have anything sticking out, right?
yeah,
Like it's all good, right? And it's
yeah. Of
still,
course.
they say that kind of surgery can take up to a year to completely recover from. So now when it's sore, I know I'm not,
Yeah,
damaging it. It's just the aftermath. But yeah, it's an interesting piece, right? So when you go, there's the other piece to it is when you go, what am I going to do with my time off, right? So this is a
mm,
very rare sort of Christmas, particularly in the US, right, where Christmas is just a day and done, right? It's one of those opportunities where the kids are off school for 2 weeks, so I could take 2 weeks off, and most people take 2 weeks off, right? It's really good, and you go like, well, what am I going to do with that time? I'm going to rest and relax, but I think it's very easy to go, yeah, I'll rest, relax, I'll eat, drink, and be merry, and then I'll get back to it after New Year's, right? Whereas I'm going, actually, it's a great chance for me to at least get some reasonably balanced nutrition,
yeah,
with the occasional sausage roll, gluten-free sausage roll, nonetheless, but also incorporate as much of getting my 8 hours of sleep,
Yeah.
being restorative in everything I'm doing things that I personally enjoy, as well as getting the workouts done, right?
Yeah.
Because it's only 30 minutes, right? For every time you do it, I could procrastinate and look at Facebook reels for an hour and a half before working out because it's only 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the choice, right? What am I going to do with my time off? I'm just going to make sure I stick with my workouts and, come into the new year strong and not worry about getting back on the wagon. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it's a real fine kind of mental balance, that seesaw really of. And again, this is credit to the mental shift, because it does take a shift to get to the point where you analyze your schedule at any given time, and if you're off, you go, opportunity for a workout there. I can work out a little bit more. I can actually, that is a mindset shift that a lot of people don't have initially. Maybe you wouldn't have had
No,
initially before the process. It's more like, as you said, okay, rest, decompression, I'll enjoy the food, I'll probably drink a little bit too much, and then we're back on the horse. Whereas you start to understand that for me to be at my fullest mentally, my best performance, feel my best, self-confidence, like I need to do these things. And that's a real
yeah.
shift in the way you think. When was that point for you? Was there a point in time throughout the process in which you were like, okay, like I get it now. The system's kind of cracked in terms of couldn't do a workout and you were missing it or wanted to go and do it. When did that happen for you?
I think that happened. Well, we started MMA, Jude, probably after 2 months into the journey,
Yeah.
right? Was this, oh, this is what I'm doing, right? Because this is what I want. This is what right? I mean, nobody wants to be in pain and like in a pool of sweat on the floor, but I want to do this because I feel good. I think it was around that time I said to you, maybe we could put another workout in. You put Tabata in there. And I remember that first Tabata session where I was like cursing your
Regret
name
that.
but that's 24 minutes, right? Like
Yeah.
literally to me, that's the reset button. I go to Tabata now. If I'm traveling and I got 3 days, I haven't been able to go to the gym,
Yeah.
it's something you do on the bedroom floor, right? Just get right some sets done, right? Get the heart rate up and that's a good reset for me. So yeah, I think that was sort of 2 months in. I had some travel coming up. I went out to Europe. I remember pinging you from Belgrade, and I was walking down the street at some ridiculously early time in the morning, having woken up with jet lag, worked
Yeah.
out, got myself a coffee, and was walking down and saw all these mirrored windows. Looked over and went, "Who's that guy?" Right? Um, yeah. So 8 to 10 weeks in was that shift of,
Yeah.
oh, this is actually rewarding me with a lot more than just the weight numbers coming down, and I feel
Yeah.
much better, and I've got to do this.
Good. And again, that'll serve you for life. I think that's the start of a process, or when people are contemplating doing something. One of the huge obstacles they say is, I just struggle with the motivation to do it. I don't like doing it. It's a big kind of mental obstacle for me. If you kind of peel off the layers of that onion, you can get to a point where, okay, you can break down why do they hate it, the ecosystem of their lifestyle, and build something a little bit more organic for them, that original for them, then that works. And then bingo, you reach a point eventually, once you've felt and you've seen the reward of your work, that's when that sets in. So you kind of have to, that first 8 week part, you'll just button up against the mental resistance and tick
Right.
box and do without that much gratification, aren't you? And you have to push past that, kind of sludge through the swamp, if you will, and then you come out dry land the other side, and you look back and you go, okay, I figure I get this now. I'm feeling
Yeah.
it. I'm looking better. Actually, there's a huge part of me now that wants to do all of this, rather than just don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that's a huge shift that has to happen. Whether people do, the journey by themselves, or whether they take on board a coach, or they get help in any shape or form, you got to face the uphill battle initially and build the momentum, haven't you? Which is brilliant. Run through for everyone where you are now, Jonathan, where you were initially and where you are now in terms of weight metrics and strength them running. Because, I see the photos you sent me today, and it's incredible. We were discussing it before we came live. It's incredible to see. It's a visual stamp representation of the hard work is incredible, and there's some metrics and some data behind that. So just let's compare where you were at the start and where you are now, just to help people understand. Okay, in 6 months, what really was possible.
Strength score, right? Like tracking all the metrics, right? That progression of what I'm lifting, right? Well, it's that makes it sound like it's not just about lifting, but like how much
Yeah,
intensity I can build into a workout and maintain. I couldn't do more than 4 push-ups when we started this, right? I could I could bang out 25 on the floor right now, right? And that's nothing to be ashamed of. That's an easy metric to think of.
yeah,
We were talking about 209 pounds when we started. I bounce around 172, 173 now. So that's 37 pounds down, say on average. Um, and with a mechanism to be able to maintain and not have the risk of putting that back on, right? A lot of that was fat, and fat takes time to put on. It takes time to take off again. Physically, right, from a core perspective, feeling strong. And I think that's the essential piece, right? Yeah, biceps and all of that stuff is great, but down here at the core
yeah,
and feeling that strength and stability. And then a lot of that, right? You and I talked about posture about 3 months in, right? Like my terrible posture because I sit at desks all day and I hunched over, right? Like just being able to walk tall when I'm going to work with, wearing my backpack properly and not just hanging off one shoulder. It just lots of different things. But
yeah,
from a metrics perspective, for every device I have tracking my health, right, it seems to suggest that I'm in good health. And certainly areas to work on, right? This
yeah,
isn't a done journey. It's continue to identify, well, what do I want to do with this new tool set that I've got that with respect to my health, and what direction do I want to go with it? And being able to then incorporate some health, exercise for pleasure, right? As I told you, I love cycling, but just really haven't had time to go cycling, and looking forward to the springtime and get back on the bike and get out there and just do things for fun,
yeah,
right? That require a lot more activity. So
yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah. Absolutely, it does. Very, very important point. I think moving through this next phase for you, it's important to note, and you've just touched on it, which is important for everyone to know. The journey never stops. You said those words. Like, if your metric, we could have sat, right, well, I want to go from £209 to 170. Brilliant. What happens? It's like, these overnight millionaires. It happens, and then you sat there, or people who sell their businesses, and then they're sat there with the money in their account the next day, and they feel pretty empty and pretty low, and they're like, well, that wasn't how it was supposed to feel. What do I do now? It's the same with your health, right? It's an ongoing journey. You have to learn to enjoy it, learn how to extract what you need out of it, do it with balance, but do it with a smile on your face. If you have this negative, and like you said, you're glass half full, which really helps. But if you do it with this negative feeling or emotion, oh, this is difficult, or I don't like tracking. Oh my god, I've got these metrics to enter. Oh, I don't want to work out today. It's confirmation bias. You'll see all the negatives and the obstacles. If you remain positive and you align to the higher level, more exponential reason why you're doing it, you'll see the opportunities, whether that is to work out or to prep some food or to enter your data or simply just to try and enjoy the process. It's really important.
Yeah.
How would you say the process has impacted other areas of your life? Well, we talked about obviously you moved into or promoted into CEO, which is brilliant at the very start of the journey. So how did it help in that arena, but also kind of home life as well?
I would say it's a more consistent energy,
Mm.
right? Again, I'm 55. I don't bounce out of bed at 5 a.m. like full of beans, right? But it's getting just a more steady state of energy that throughout the day that doesn't like crash mid afternoon, right? And so the job of a CEO is pretty full on, right? That there's always something going on. There's always something to talk about, and it's an injection of my own enthusiasm and mental energy into almost 100 people globally, right, to do what we want to do, achieve the mission for our clients, right? So there's always that constant, and mental energy is just as exhausting as physical energy,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's a lot of calories burned up in that. So being able to maintain that, and then being able to get on a train and go through a 55-minute commute where I use that commute to decompress somewhat, get home, and not be completely spent at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening. And I think that being able to have that constant, I guess, tank of gas, right, to be able to lean in on
Yeah.
is probably the biggest thing I've gotten out of the journey.
Good. And that's what needs to happen. You say this all the time as well. Your health system must give back to the other areas of your life for sure. Anyone can program something that's kind of take, and super intense and pulls you away from everything. But actually, it needs to make sure, like you said, you're primed in terms of human performance in your workday. Around the home, yes, okay, we dedicate some time to working out, but actually there's a positive influence. It gives you energy, it allows you to be a little bit more present rather than just getting back and bit of a vegetable on the sofa. It allows you to kind of, you know, reinvigorate for that back end of your day. So that is important to me as well to hear that, because the health, you know, it's one aspect of our life. It's super important, but it's the people around us, our family, our careers. It's kind of our foothold and seemingly our legacy. So it's important. They all need to interact. They all interact with each other, but they all need to kind of serve each other as well, which is
Yep.
important. Jonathan, brilliant conversation. Just to finish, tell me and tell anyone listening, of course, I guess as high level or granular as you would like to go, how you feel about your experience at the Consistency Club. Because it's all, you know, it's data based and it's science based and we're
Yeah.
focused on doing, and I know you've been removed from it from a little bit while now, you're absolutely smashing it. But overall sentiment and experience and feeling, how do you feel about the experience, about the Consistency Club, about our relationship, and equally, who would you recommend it to?
I recommend it to people often, as you well know.
Yes.
I think that it's been such a dramatic shift, right? The ecosystem around me, a lot of the people I do business with, friends, right? It's a constant form of conversation, and hopefully, when my suits come back from the tailor, then everything will be in line. But so when people talk to me about what was it like, what was the journey, and you know, you hired the Consistency Club, what did they do? I'm like, well, they can't do it for you, right? But they can be there along the journey of that, bumpy road of progress. You just got to trust in process, right?
Yeah.
And that's all you have to do is show up and mentally go, I'm going to trust in the process. I'm going to do mostly what I'm told, right? Or at least try and assimilate to be doing what I'm told to do. And they were like, well, what do you get out of the thing? And I'm like, you get this person on your shoulder, right? The good guy on your shoulder, but also you get this visual from a metrics perspective, right? Tracking everything, right? My biggest regret through this, I didn't figure out how to take better pictures of myself day one,
Hmm.
right? Because then we would have had that consistency, because that's alien, right? Like the
Yeah.
having the 10-minute video check in on a Friday, right? And you're going through the metrics and you're seeing all this data. But that's sort of the metrics reward of the process that comes before the physical well-being sense of rewards. I just tell people trust the process,
Yeah.
right? It's not it's overwhelming for people, right? When they'll notice that I'm moderating alcohol consumption and eating lean proteins and not going off and it's not bad, right? People aren't judging me for that, but then they put themselves in that and go, oh, I don't know whether I could do that, right? It's like it's a simple step across the threshold, trust in process, it'll
Yeah.
be fine.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Jonathan, it's been a pleasure to have you on, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you,
think there's
Davey.
a lot of value, hopefully, that people listening can take from your journey. Other execs who resonate, you know, family men or women that go through similar sort of obstacles. Maybe they're in similar sort of mind states before. Literally anything is possible. Just have to have the intention. I guess the courage to go. Actually, you know, I'm going to change. I'm going to invest my time
Well,
here into doing this. But yeah, your journey specifically, it makes me proud to be a part of. Obviously, we've built a great relationship, which is nice, and I'm glad you're smashing it still, because that's the value here. Hence the consistency club. You know, you should not have to be with me for the rest of your life. So to see you to see you smashing it outside, mate, is yeah, gives me great
appreciate
pride,
it.
and is the reason why I do what I do. So I appreciate you, and thank you so much for joining this this episode of the Consistency Club podcast.
Jamie, thanks for everything. I super appreciate it.
Legend.